Hello, my name is Aurelio Voltaire, and I'm the composer of the song Innocent. Now, my musical repertoire is made up of murder ballads and ridiculous songs about Star Trek and Star Wars, and songs about undead women of the night and vampires and werewolves. It's really pretty bawdy, silly collection of music, but there are a handful of serious songs. And sometimes after a concert, someone will come up to me and they'll tell me there's a song of mine that really helped them to get through a very dark period in their life, and I kind of know right away that it's either Feathery Wings, or it's maybe Sacrifice, or it's Innocent, and it very is often Innocent. Now, the thing is, I say to these people that I'm not surprised, which seems very arrogant, but the reason I'm not surprised that it might help someone is because I write these songs to help myself get through the very same things you're going through. So I say the songs are battle tested, because they were written with a very purpose of trying to heal after having gone through something difficult of this nature. Now, as it happens, the song Innocent is about bullying, which is unfortunately a topic I know quite a lot about. My family emigrated to America from Cuba when I was a small child, and we settled in Newark, New Jersey. My elementary school was primarily black and Hispanic, so I thought I fit right in being Cuban, but I was wrong because I was the only one with light colored skin, so I was the white boy, and I was bullied and picked on every single day for being white. And when I say bullied, I don't mean it lightly. I don't mean like they called me names. I mean I was beaten up quite a lot, and it was really pretty terrible, and it was a very difficult thing for someone to have to go through at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, so young in life. We had a change of fortune when I was in third grade, and we moved to the suburbs. Driving into our new town, I saw trees and grass for the first time, and I saw white people walking their dogs. And it's a true story. I turned to my sister and I said, "We're going to live with the white people." And I was so excited that we were finally going to live with our own kind, because I wouldn't be bullied anymore. And then the first day of school, they did roll call. They said Weinstein, and a hand went up. And then they said O'Malley, and a hand went up. And then they said Hernandez, which is my name, and I raised my hand, and everybody turned around and looked at me. And one kid said, "He's a spick," which is a derogatory term for Hispanic, Latin American people. And from that day forth, I was no longer white. From that day forth, I was the Hispanic kid, and I was bullied every day for being the Hispanic kid. But luckily, in time, they got to know me as a person, and they realized that there were vastly better reasons to hate me. You know, the other boys liked to play sports, and I didn't like to play sports, so that made me a faggot. That was the word they used. I made stop-motion animated films in my basement because I loved Ray Harryhausen and I wanted to be like him. I thought that made me a filmmaker, but that also made me a faggot. And during recess, when the other boys played ball, I would bring this big sketchbook outside and I would draw scenes from Star Trek and Star Wars. And I thought that made me an artist, and that made me very happy. But the word they used for that was also faggot. And I was bullied relentlessly, and when I say that, again, I don't mean that they just called me names. I mean, there were gangs of fellows who waited for me outside after school, and they would chase me, and I'm not a very fast runner, so they'd catch me more often than not, and take turns beating me up, quite frankly. Now, unfortunately, my home life wasn't much better. I was growing up in a very strict Cuban household. I had a stepfather who to whom everything was a threat of homosexuality. This guy was really terrified that everything might turn you gay, like as if that's the worst thing that could happen to a person. So he also shared the sentiment of my colleagues at school. He thought that my interest in stop-motion animation made me un homosexual, and drawing Star Wars characters made me un homosexual. And so home life was pretty terrible. And forget it, once I discovered goth music and style and new wave music and style, and I wanted to get an earring and dye my hair, then I really was a raging homosexual, apparently. So there was a lot of trouble at school, and there was a lot of trouble at home. And then to make all matters worse, there was some pervy male member, friend of the family who took a fancy to me. So on top of all of this, I was being sexually molested. So it was a pretty terrible time. Pretty terrible time. I went through a lot of awful things. When I was 16 years old, the love of my life decided to take hers. And she was a year older than me. She was 17 years old, and she killed herself. And I thought she probably just wasn't really meant for this world. I thought this world is full of mean, terrible, awful people. She didn't seem to belong here. And I thought, you know what, I don't belong here either. So I maybe finally decided to take the advice of the people in this town when they kept telling me, nobody likes you, you should kill yourself. But I thought rather rationally, no, I think they're right. I think I don't belong here. I think maybe I should kill myself. And so I decided I was going to do that. So I went to sleep, and I decided the next day I would take my life. I got up, and then I had an idea. I thought, all right, you know what, I am going to do this, but just for one day, just as an experiment, I'm going to do and say everything that I want to do and say, and I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm not going to allow myself to be bullied. So I got up and I went to school, and I was surrounded by the football players who liked to have a good time with me, pushing me around. And I told them exactly what I thought of them. I completely stood up to them because I was going to die later that day, so nothing they could do to me could be worse than death. And it was such a shock to me when they just turned around and walked away. Then I had a problem with a teacher, and I told her exactly what I thought of her. And then when I went home, I had a scuffle with my parents, and I told them what I thought of them. And that day was pretty glorious. I went down to my creepy little room in the basement, and I was about to do the deed and end my life when I thought to myself, wow, what a great day. All right, now I'm not going to chicken out. I am going to kill myself, but just one more day. Just one more day like today. That was 32 years ago. And the reason I'm alive today is because I have lived my life that way every single day for 32 years. I've been an advocate for myself. I refuse to be bullied because there's nothing a bully can do to you that's worse than living in fear. I honestly would rather have my arm broken than to be living in fear. And so subsequently, I ran away from home. I found my way to Manhattan, where I was surrounded by like-minded individuals. I was surrounded by people who also loved art and music and goth culture and new wave and all of the things that I loved. But literally my first day in Manhattan, when my pointy skull-buckled boot touched Manhattan soil, or as we call it here, concrete, everything changed. People walked up to me, they said, "You have such a great look, will you be in my movie? Wait a minute, you make stop-motion animated films? That's fascinating." All of the same things that made me a social pariah, apparently worthy of death, in the small town that I grew up in, made me a fascinating person in New York City because people appreciated me for who I really was. And it was then that I realized there was nothing wrong with me to begin with. There was something wrong with all of those narrow-minded people in that tiny little town. Now, when I was a young boy, I really could have used a song like Innocent. And there's still a lot of hurt inside of me as I think about those times, my childhood and the things that happened, the things that I went through. And so I wrote the song Innocent for myself, for my younger self, if you will. So I hope that if you are experiencing some of the same things that I went through, that this song will help you as well. And more importantly, I hope that you will take my advice to respect yourself, to believe in yourself, to stand up for yourself, and to say, I will not be bullied. If you're being bullied, tell your parents, tell a teacher, call the police, do whatever you have to do to get an authority figure involved, because bullying is just absolutely unacceptable. You don't deserve it. Believe me. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the song.
they scream and when they yell and tear you down. They make your life a living hell when they come around.